Welcome to Money Matters with Quincy Credit Union. My name is Amy Kelly, and I'm your host. Thank you so much. We are here today with Leanne DeLeo, a financial aid associate with Quincy College. She's going to help us today talk about a lot of the stuff that you have to go through when you're applying for financial aid, entering the college sector of your life. So Leanne, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Thanks for having me. The first step in applying for financial aid is completing the FAFSA, and that stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And the FAFSA application is basically for students to apply for federal funding, and that could be grants, loans, and federal work-study positions.
That's awesome. So it is a very interesting process. How would a family or a student start? Where can they find the information, or where can they go to do the application?
Right, yep. So the FAFSA, like it says in the name, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, so that is free. There's no cost to complete a FAFSA.
Yeah.
And the website is fafsa.gov.
All right, so awesome. So what do they need? After going through high school, or maybe your parents help step in to do a lot of the stuff. This is probably their first real hands-on application where they have to see, oh, what do I need? What do I have to ask my parents? Can I do it on my own? What kind of documents are they going to be expected to find?
Right. So the FAFSA, if they're doing the FAFSA for a September 2020 start in college, they're actually going to be using 2018 taxes. Now, most students who are still in high school and they'll be freshmen in college next year, they'll be required to use their parents' taxes as well as their own if they did file. Students have to use their parents' tax information on FAFSA until the age of 24.
Wow.
Yep. Unless there's extenuating circumstances, it's not 18 years old, it's 24 for financial aid.
Wow. Yeah, so you said 2018. So that's actually like a big difference in time. I mean, anything could change. You could be in a position now where you're maybe less able to pay than you were 2 years ago. Is there any families, find a conflict with that?
Yeah, I get that a lot. I have a lot of parents that will say to me, why are you asking for 2018 taxes? My income is completely different. There may have been a change in income, a loss of employment. So that does happen. And what parents should do is bring that up to the financial aid office of their child's school, and they could start something called a financial aid appeal. Now, when they do something like that, the college is going to require documentation just to show why they would reduce income. So if it's a loss of employment, they would want to see a layoff letter or a termination letter, proof of severance benefits, proof of unemployment. It's always good to kind of write down just on paper a clear explanation of why you're filing that appeal, what change in your circumstances has happened. There are other cases as well where a parent might appeal a financial aid package for their child. Unfortunately, if there's been an illness or some sort of medical condition and they have high out-of-pocket medical expenses, that might be something that they can consider. If there was, we've had a lot of weather happening lately, so if someone needed to have a roof repaired or some sort of structural repair to their home and they had to borrow money for that, or it's impacted their ability to pay, for other things, they could also bring that concern to a financial aid office.
Wow. Yeah, I find that very interesting. I would have never, you never take that additional step on the basics to kind of say, hey, well, what do I do now? Where can there be exceptions made? Like, my situations are a little bit different, and it's good to know that there's an option for an appeal. I want to know, regarding the whole process, the students have to take initiative on their own, or is it something that they can reach out to schools or come to you? Is there any place where if they don't have parents guiding them, they can go for an additional resource to help them with this?
Sure, yeah. A lot of high school students can talk to their guidance counselors. A lot of high schools, and especially around here, they do financial aid nights. The fall is kind of a really popular time for that, where they'll invite some experts from colleges or outside organizations to kind of talk about financial literacy and where to start. I work at Quincy College right down the street, so every Tuesday from 2 to 4, every week, we host a free FAFSA Help Day, and you can walk in, you don't even have to make an appointment. And we've had a lot of local high school students and their parents actually pop in, do a FAFSA within half hour, 20 minutes to a half hour, and be on their way. So it's pretty easy if they're local. They can absolutely come to Quincy College and utilize that every Tuesday from 2 to 4.
And as you're, you've been doing this for how long now? How long you've been kind of in the...
Yep, 15 years
15
in
years.
financial aid.
Wow.
Yep.
So you absolutely have, a bunch of knowledge to pass on. And that's one of the things that's most important about these segments is like, Quincy Credit Union, education is the most important thing that we can do to help empower the students, the people, to better financially position themselves. And that's what you do every day. So with that, deadlines, timing, having enough advance notice to kind of process things, does it position them better? Is there specific deadlines that are always the same year after year? Or what do they look at, and how long in advance can they plan for their FAFSA for the next year?
Right. So, I mean, like I said, the FAFSA becomes available almost a year in advance of them starting school. So, and the FAFSA is kind of a rolling application. It doesn't really stop during the year. Students can complete that at any time.
Got it.
However, there are some state grant deadlines that they want to be aware of. For our students here in Massachusetts, you have to complete a FAFSA by May 1st in order to be considered for Massachusetts state grant. And then there's also college deadlines. Some colleges do have their own application deadlines as well as FAFSA deadlines, CSS profile deadlines. That's different than the FAFSA.
Huh. So wait, CSS profile deadline. So what is this? What is a CSS? Is that something different from a FAFSA?
Yeah. So the FAFSA, like I had said, is for federal funding. The CSS profile is actually for institutional funding. So a lot of private colleges, actually 241 colleges in the country, do require a CSS profile to be considered for their own institutional aid. And we all know the cost of colleges these days. It's really important to make sure that you're exploring every avenue to help finance a private education. So for some of those private schools, they do require the CSS profile. Now that is given through the College Board. And it's not free. The FAFSA is free to complete, but the CSS profile, it's $25 to send it to one school, and then $16 per each additional school after that.
Wow.
So some students might actually qualify for a CSS profile fee waiver, depending on certain academic criteria or financial criteria. So they should actually look on the College Board's website for that information on how to qualify.
Okay. Yeah, that's really awesome. So you basically have to know your eligibility to a college to apply for a CSS profile, it seems, right? So if you're so early in the process, said October, as soon as October, you can start the FAFSA process. You might not know if you even got into college. You might not even finish your applications yet, right?
Right.
So at what process should they be stepping into the CSS profile? As soon as they get acceptance so that they save the $25? Or is it something that, also depletes like maybe some of the mass grants?
Possibly, yeah. The schools that do require a CSS profile, again, it's not every school, but there are 241 schools that you do need to complete it in order to possibly be considered for extra money to help pay for that school. So the CSS profile becomes available when the FAFSA becomes available. And if you know that, let's say, for instance, Boston University is a school that you're interested in, I know that Boston University does require a CSS profile to be considered for their own aid. So you should do that right away when you're doing the FAFSA. And, hopefully you do qualify for that fee waiver for the CSS. And the CSS differs a little bit from the FAFSA. The FAFSA only asks about your custodial parent. So in the case of a divorce or separated parents, only one parent has to be, added to their FAFSA. And if the parent is remarried, it would have to be the step-parent's income as well. The CSS differs because they also ask about non-custodial parent and their contribution. The CSS profile also kind of gets into the value of the primary residence, whereas the FAFSA doesn't care how much your home is worth where you live.
Yeah.
The CSS profile does delve a little bit more into those types of finances, so it is a little bit more detailed.
Gotcha. You know, I kind of wonder, you know, this is one of the things I always wondered with certain grants and money that you got coming in from, you know, for college. FAFSA something that you have to pay back, or the CSS program? Do you have to pay that back? Is there interest on it, or is it just, you know, your free money that you get?
Right.
You know.
So the FAFSA, hopefully you qualify for grant money, which is free money. That's great. I always say to my students, grants are great, they're gifts, they're good. But loans have to be repaid.
Okay.
And the FAFSA will, you know, possibly qualify a student for all types of aid. So it could be free money, it could be student loans, it could be a federal work-study position where the student is earning money towards their bill. The CSS profile, it could be grant money from the school, institutional aid, as we call it. It could be a different type of loan that the college itself, you know, offers. So, you know, there's no one answer to, is this free? Is this a loan? It depends on each student's results, you know. And so each college will send a specialized award letter explaining all the different aid that they're offered based on their results from the FAFSA and or CSS profile.
Okay. So some of that money, as you're saying, is a grant gift. Some of it could be chosen to be paid back, and then there's a bunch of other options that they give you to help aid you through the school so that you can afford it. Is that where the subsidized and unsubsidized loans come from that everybody talks about, but we're kind of really not sure what that is?
Yep,
Is that...
the most famous loans in history. The direct subsidized and the direct unsubsidized loan. So that's from the FAFSA. So the direct subsidized loan is from the government, and every student, as long as they are not in default of a previous student loan, they will qualify to actually borrow a loan all by themselves. So that might seem crazy for a 17-year-old student to think, oh my goodness, I have a loan in my own name. But
Yeah.
yes, that's part of paying for college for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there's two different types of that direct loan, subsidized and unsubsidized. So subsidized means that there's no interest accruing on it while the student attends. The government is actually covering the interest for them while they're in school.
Wow.
So that's great because less interest means less extra money that they'll have to repay in the future. And that is a subsidy, so it's need-based. So we don't know if a student will actually qualify for that subsidized loan until we receive a FAFSA result. Everybody qualifies. Again, if they're not in default of a previous student loan, everybody qualifies for at least an unsubsidized Stafford loan, which basically means that there is interest accruing on that loan while they're in school. Now, students don't have to pay back loans while they're attending at least half time. They can begin repayment while they're in school if they would like to, but they're not required to.
Got it. So after, you know, everything's said and done, there's obviously a whole spectrum of what students kind of can afford, you know, where they come from. You know, some are, have better options for payments. Some have even less resources. So after everything's said and done, they go through the whole process, they check everything off, and they still see that they might not be able to afford college. What would you say to a student that is really deterred away from even being able to try to attend and apply because they're afraid of that expense?
Yeah. I mean, college is always an option. If the money is the issue, there is always an option. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to attend that fancy private four-year college right away. But there are local schools. You know, at Quincy College, we have so many students that just couldn't afford to go to a four-year school. Even some state schools can be really expensive. So they'll start with us and take their core classes like the English, the math, psychology, computers, those classes that would normally transfer to a four-year institution. And some students save 2 to 3 years of private college tuition by attending a school like Quincy College. And then they'll still end up transferring, getting the degree from the four-year school, but they have saved 2 to 3 years of that private school tuition.
All right. So you're saying if the guy was to start school at Quincy College, do a full 2 years there, and then transfer to a more like Emerson or a more like higher, higher 4-year degree, my diploma would say Emerson or MIT or Harvard, right?
Absolutely.
And there'd be no difference on my.
No, just the transcripts would show transfer credits from the first institution. But as far as the credential goes, if you're transferring to a Boston University or an Emerson College, that's your diploma from Boston University or Emerson College.
Wow.
Yep. Quincy actually offers programs where you can do 90 credits at the Quincy College cost for some programs, and then you could transfer into certain four-year schools for 1 year to graduate with their degree, but you only have to pay 1 year of that higher tuition.
Wow.
So there are creative financial ways to afford to go to college. And if anyone local is ever worried about not being able to go to college or to send their child to college, I would tell you, come down to Quincy College. Come see me in the financial aid office. Even if you're not interested in Quincy College, I would be more than happy to sit down and explain the options to people, because it's never not an option to go to college.
Wow. And so after that, then there's scholarships too, right?
There are
scholarships.
scholarships.
Just trying to find the right fit, everything that fits in, make the puzzle fit so that you can get what you want, because that's the greatest thing about where we live, right? Everybody can get there as long as they help themselves and they use the resources in their communities, and people are out there to be able to serve them. And that's what we're trying to do here today. So private scholarships, I know we give one at the credit union. I know that there's probably boatloads of places that will give one that you wouldn't even think to ask or find out. How do people even find those? I wouldn't even know where to start.
Right.
So
there's millions of private scholarships.
And you probably know them all.
Yeah, I know all of them now. I wish I did.
Yeah.
But there are scholarship search engines that I always tell students, a year before you're planning on going to college, or even while you're in college, always continue to search for scholarships. There's a ton of them out there. A lot of websites that I recommend to students, and it's on Quincy College's website under our financial aid section. We do list out these scholarship search engines, and they can be used at most any college in the country.
Yeah.
The main one is fastweb.com. Another one is collegescholarships.com.
Got it.
And then it's scholarships.com.
Wow.
So, and the thing I want to say about private scholarships is they should never ask a student to divulge personal information like a social security number or something like that. So, most scholarships will ask, the general stuff, GPA, intended major, things like that. If you feel that it's getting a little bit too personal with the information that they're asking for, I would tell the student to just close out and not continue to apply for that scholarship. And apply for as many as possible. It's the law of averages. The more you apply for, the more chance you have of getting something. So even if it's $1,000 scholarship that you're receiving, that could cover your textbooks for the year.
Yeah.
So apply for as many as possible and get started early.
Wow, that's really, that's definitely the key. The more, the better, when it comes to that. Getting as many complimentary funds for your education as possible will be really, really key. So this is all amazing information, and I know that all the websites that you've mentioned today, they're going to be available, below the video here, and also through the QATV website, so that the resources can be easily and readily available for those who are watching or those who are interested. So, I just want to thank you so much for educating our viewers on FAFSA and all the nitty-gritty about it. Even now, knowing that you can ask these questions, for help and assistance, for and knowing the difference, when you're sitting down actually finding out more with somebody in your community, you can really push for more, because that's going to be the key to getting you the most funds and getting you the best position through college financially. But this is the fun part of the episode, right? So now that she's kind of educated us, we're going to go through a series of questions where she's going to quiz me on my knowledge based on our topic. And just to let everybody know, I haven't cheated. I haven't gone ahead and found out the questions. I have no idea what she's going to ask me. And I'm not the expert. She is. So these questions, I might be stumped. I might not be stumped. But they might help you guys really review and understand some of the information we talked about today, so that it's sticking. So Leanne is going to turn over to be our game show host, I guess, and going to quiz me.
Okay, Amy, we're going to turn it around on you now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you some questions. We may have touched upon it, we may have not.
Okay.
And if for the viewers out there, play along, see how many of these you know. Okay, when does the FAFSA become available for the next year?
Okay, so for the next year, you said it comes out almost a year in advance, a year before.
Right.
So
The actual date would be
October
October 1st.
1st. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
Good job.
The
good
year
job.
before.
Almost a year before.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to apply for a FAFSA?
This one I remember. So FAFSA free, free. The FAFSA is free, but the CSS profile for your private school is not free.
Not free. You got it. Good job.
But there's waivers.
That's right. There could be waivers. And again, the website for FAFSA is fafsa.gov. What tax year does a 2021 FAFSA require?
2021 FAFSA. So 2 years prior, it would be 2019.
Well, it would be the first part of that, so 2021.
So 2021 I'm applying for, but I apply a year in advance. So then that would be almost 3 years before that. So it would be 2018?
2018
Okay,
taxes.
2018.
You got it.
I was
Exactly.
Like, it was a little tricky
Yep.
here with the 1 year before, so.
It is. You did great.
Thank you.
What is the FAFSA deadline for the Massachusetts State Grant?
That one was May 1st.
Yep.
I'm not about losing money.
You got it. Which is better, grants or loans?
Grants are free, so that is way better. Loans you have to pay back.
You got
Not
it.
as cool.
Exactly. How many years is standard loan repayment after school?
How many years is standard loan repayment? Okay. Okay, I remember you saying that there's, like, how many years do you have to start paying it back?
How many years does a student have to pay back their student loans, usually? You can just guess.
Okay. I want to say 6, but, like, I remember it was, like, 6, no, maybe 10?
10.
10.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know,
10
just
years.
throw numbers out
or
there.
120 payments. So
120 payments.
Yep. So they would pay it monthly. They have 10 years. That's standard repayment. There are different types of repayment options.
Okay.
Not everyone is just a standard graduate from college and start paying back your loans. A lot of
Ooh,
people.
10 years.
A lot of people will go back to school. So
Yeah.
there's an in-school deferment option where they'll put their loans on hold while they're in school.
Okay, and it won't count against them.
Well, it doesn't count against them,
In their
but
time.
the interest will be accruing on that loan while they're attending that other school.
Okay.
So, if they're having a hard time, a financial hardship, there is an income-based repayment that they could look into. There are other different types of repayments out there. They should contact their loan servicer
Okay.
to inquire.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yep. So that's 10 years to pay
That's
off
tough.
loans.
Okay.
Do you still have to pay back your loans even if you don't finish school?
Okay. I'd like to say no, but I know the answer is yes. I'd like to say no because,
Yeah.
it's a bummer, but you can't just borrow money and decide you don't, want to drive that car anymore
Right.
and just, like, not pay for it. So, yeah, I would definitely say you have to pay it back no matter what.
You got it. So you have to repay the loans that you've borrowed up until the time you leave the college.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Great. What is the grace period before a first-time borrower has to begin repayment on their loans?
6 months?
You got it.
Okay, that's only because I went to college and I was dreading the whole 6 months
Yeah.
coming up to having to start paying back. And I was like, oh no.
It's the calm before the storm.
Yeah, I was like, should I just go on vacation right now, or should I start taking things seriously? But yeah, that's a big one. for
Yep.
Sure.
So the 6-month grace period is just for first-time borrowers. So if you graduate from college or you leave school and you use that 6-month grace period before you start repayment, and then you go to another school and you borrow additional funding, when you leave that second school, you do have to begin loan repayment immediately. So it's only a one-time 6-month grace period.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Speaking of loans,
Uh-oh.
which is better, the subsidized direct loan or the unsubsidized direct loan?
All right. I know the difference. So, the subsidized, the government is paying for the interest while you're in college, and the unsubsidized, the government's not paying the interest when you're in college. You're paying for it, and it's probably growing, which is
Yep.
fun.
So which would be better?
Okay, so subsidized. Of course. I love when
Subsidized, right.
the government pays for
Yep.
things. I
So
prefer
there's
that.
basically no interest on it while you're in school because,
right.
as you said, the government is covering that while the
Right.
student's in school.
Wow.
How many credits is considered half-time in an undergraduate program?
I remember you said something like Quincy College gives 90 credits for something.
So, I'll give you a
6,
little hint. Oh,
7?
6. You got it.
Because I remember each class is almost 4 credits, 3 or 4 credits. So I
Right.
was like, figured if you take half the amount of classes you're supposed to.
You got it,
4.
exactly. So,
So it's only 2 classes.
yeah, well, usually, typically.
Oh, that's just, I mean, it can be hard to take 2 classes if you're working.
Right.
But you'll still be eligible.
Right.
Right.
Like at
for
Quincy
some-
College, our average student age is 27 years old right now. So a lot of students have jobs,
Kids. Life.
other responsibilities. So they might only be able to take 1 or 2 classes.
Wow.
And those that are borrowing loans, it's really important for them to know what half-time is, because in order to borrow student loans, you have to be at least a half-time student. So you have to have at least 6 credits to borrow
Gotcha.
loans. For grants, it's a little bit different. For federal grants, the Pell Grant is the big grant from the FAFSA. That, there's no credit limit or a minimum for a Pell Grant. It's just based on how many credits they are taking.
Gotcha.
It's a kind of a sliding amount. But for loans, they do have to have at least 6 credits.
Okay.
Okay. Until what age does a student have to report their parent on their FAFSA?
Oh, I like to align everything with like insurance, like how long you can get your insurance. But I think it was younger than that. I think it's 24.
You got it,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
What's insurance, 26?
26.
Yep. So for FAFSA,
was changed.
so I learned from you, 26 is insurance, but for FAFSA, it's 24.
Gotcha.
Unless, again, that they have an extenuating circumstances. Sometimes if a student is married,
Yeah.
if they have a child or a dependent that they support, if they're an orphan or a ward of the court or some other extenuating circumstances, then they could be considered independent.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
for students that are under the age of 24 and don't have any extenuating circumstances, they do have to provide parent information.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay. If a student cannot afford the cost of their first choice college, what is the logical next step?
Choose their second choice college. Yeah, or they can, like you said, we can transfer, do a 2-year school transfer. If you still want your first college, then you could possibly do a 2-year school and transfer financially to cut back, or choose your second choice. Or
Those are all good options.
Thank you. I tried.
Usually what I would tell students to do is start at a lower cost school, a community college
Yep.
or even a state school sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I said, Quincy College, we have a ton of students that are just doing their core classes for a year or 2, and then they're, transferring out into a more expensive school.
Yeah.
I always tell students, you have a lot of life to live after you leave college. And you're going to want to use your money elsewhere. Maybe you want to buy a house or a car. You
Absolutely.
might have your own children one day that you want to help finance their education.
Yeah.
So it's really smart to kind of set yourself up for a good financial future in the beginning. And that might mean choosing the more affordable college option, even if it's
Yeah.
not the most desirable at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and understanding that you have the options to cut back on whatever costs might be. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a huge thing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
When should students start applying for scholarships?
Scott, as soon as possible, immediately. Scholarships don't, you can apply for scholarships whenever.
Yeah.
As long as they're available, of course. You can go through and find out as many scholarships as you like. And
Right.
apply.
So the answer was apply for them yesterday.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
Soon as possible. I want another scholarship.
Yeah.
I think I should just keep on applying. But is there age limits for scholarship? Everything's kind of different criteria wise, or
Yeah, so
doesn't matter how old you are. Because I know as you get older and you're going back to school, you kind of feel like the resources are for the high school kids, or the resources aren't for you. So sometimes I think, like, if I wanted to go back to school, like, would I, at my age, or old, like high 20s, are you going to be able to still get scholarships, or are they just for kids?
Absolutely. Like you said, there's a ton of scholarships out there, and they're all different criteria. Some are based on even hobbies or interests. Some are based on the college degree that you're studying. Others can be based, I know that there's one for like single parents out there.
Oh, awesome.
So the criteria just runs the gamut. So there's a scholarship out there for everybody.
Got it.
Yep, and apply as early as possible.
Yesterday. I'm going to go back to time traveling also. Money matters, and so does my time. So.
Well, speaking of that's all. You did a great job
Thank you.
answering
Yes,
those
good.
questions.
And I just really did not, I had no idea outside of this conversation,
I know.
besides some of my experience, which was a blur through college and high school. So now that this is really helpful. And I can just having the conversation with you, think of so many people like I'd love to share this information with, or like, just reiterate it to them. But luckily with this video, I'm sure you can share it, you can post it, you can send it to your friends online. QATV will be featuring it, when it makes the most sense, which apparently was yesterday, the day before that. And you need to always be thinking about college, about your future, and about your financial stance in regards to it. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Money Moments with Quincy Credit Union. I'm Amy Kelly, and next time you'll be seeing Lauren Pedretti. So can't wait to do that. And thank you so much, Leanne, for coming in.
You're welcome. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Thank
Awesome.
you.